No, I said, you didn't answer my question. Why should I answer yours? And he says, well, I'm starting to get concerned. Where do you work, man? And he's like going like this and his hands like shaking while he does it. And I just realized, I think on a subconscious level, he was like, who is this guy? Where does he come from? What organization does he work with? Who planted him here? You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's a little conceited of me, but I feel like that might have been part of that. Who's to say? You guys may know of a character named Matt Walsh, part of the Alec Gunter extended universe. Matt Walsh here decided to talk about a new NFL coach, and apparently he was being pretty racist about it. So I just want to go over it for myself and see what's going on. Because, you know, I personally I'd never say that Matt Walsh is racist or anything. It's certainly not. But, you know, I'm always open to being proven wrong. So let's see what's going on here, man. What's up?
Well, for those who don't follow football, the NFL playoffs are currently underway. My Baltimore Ravens are playing on Saturday against the Houston Texans, and that's neither here nor there. I just want to mention it, you know, because I'm excited about it. Much to my chagrin, nobody in the audience cares about football. You don't care about football, and you don't care about aliens, and those are like half of the things I care about.
Dude, he's such a nerd. He's like, oh, my audience doesn't care about the things that I care about. Oh, doo-boo-doo-boo. Oh, woo-boo-woo-boo-woo. Okay, dude.
And yet somehow we make this relationship work. You know, I don't know how we do it, but we do. So anyway, for the teams who didn't make the playoffs.
That's parasocial as fuck, by the way. Our relationship, okay.
It's been a bit of a bloodbath for coaches. Lots of
I'm being very uncharitable.
You know, as always happens at the end of the regular season. The difference is that this time you got some legendary coaches that are getting the boot, including Bill Belichick from the New England Patriots. After 475 years as their head coach and after winning like 83 Super Bowls or whatever it was, he's now gone. And a few days ago, his replacement was announced. And the guy taking over is named Gerard Mayo. He's 37 years old. He's a former player. He has no head coaching experience. He has very little coaching experience in general. And he's the guy they're bringing in to take over the most successful take over for the most successful NFL coach of all time. So we'll see how that works out. I'm guessing it will work out very poorly. Okay. That's my prediction. In fact,
By the way, I don't care about the NFL at all. It's not my thing. I used to play football. I know how the game works. I just don't give a shit about the players or the coaches or the names. Too many names. People were like, oh, what'd you think of the Bengals game last night? Like, they think I'm into it, right? Because I have that, like, football player build, I guess. This only happened, like, once or twice. But they'll ask me about, like, the game or whatever. And I'll just be like, I didn't see it, man. I don't know. Not sure. If you want to talk about One Piece, I got you covered. But football, not much of a weeb for that.
Or that it will work out poorly. After watching the introductory press conference for the new coach yesterday, Gerard Mayo, I guess we should mention now, is black. And that's a fact that shouldn't matter.
He takes off and washes his beard.
Especially in the NFL when like
It does look like he like takes it off at the end of the day. Give it a good scrub like a Lego character. That'd be really funny.
70% of everybody in the NFL at every level is black, but it does matter because it became, of course, a focal point during the press conference, which in turn made the press conference a subject of discussion on social media with lots of people sharing their opinions about it. So first of all, just as context.
Wait. I think I missed his point there. He was saying, okay, sorry, I'm going to go back. Sorry.
Now is black. And that's a fact that shouldn't matter and shouldn't even be notable, especially in the NFL when like 70% of everybody in the NFL at every level is black.
What's the demographic of the coaches and the owners of the teams? Here, let's check. NFL offers up first NFL owner diversity report from March 28th of last year. Right, again, these are the only two known owners. These are the only two owners of color in the NFL. Two of them. Owning a pro sports team can be very lucrative, but they're also obscenely expensive to buy, fetching billions of dollars. Something even most wealthy people can't afford single-handedly, according to Roth. So yeah, point is, here they are. Point is, you have one woman. How many women were there? 1, 2, 3. So like mostly white men. Okay. And I don't care, except that indicates there's something going on here because there should be a greater spread a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, it's just interesting. It's just interesting, right? It's interesting. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Just asking questions.
But it does matter because it became, of course, a focal point during the press conference, which in turn made the press conference a subject of discussion on social media with lots of people sharing their opinions about it. So first of all, just as context, this is maybe worth noting.
Yeah, true. There were two of them. Wokeness is taking over NFL. There's two owners who aren't white.
Explained in his opening remarks that After retiring from the Patriots as a player, he was first a player and now he's a coach, but as retiring as a player, he initially left football and went to go work in the financial field. And it was while working in finance that he learned a valuable lesson that will help him as an NFL coach.
Okay.
And here he is explaining that lesson.
By the way, before he gets into this, I want to say I was going back over my Matt Walsh thing because, I enjoy revisiting it now and then. And I realized when he called me back, right? He said, no, I said, you didn't answer my question. Why should I answer yours? And he says, well, I'm starting to get concerned. Where do you work, man? And he's like going like this and his hands like shaking while he does it. And I just realized, I think on a subconscious level, he was like, who is this guy? Where does he come from? What organization does he work with? Who planted him here? You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's a little conceited of me, but I feel like that might have been part of that. Who's to say?
Break. I went to Optum. I needed a break from Bill. I went to Optum for about 4 years, and I came back. And one thing I came back with, I learned a lot at Optum. Larry Renfro, Mike Mateo, those guys. I learned a lot at Optum about diversity, right? About diversity and inclusion. And you better believe it, being the first black.
That's the new buzzword. You can't say diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, okay? That's bad. That's evil. That's ruining Western society.
Here in New England means a lot to me.
Sponsored by Gillette.
But those guys...
Righties are instantly triggered. Why Gillette? Do they have something against Gillette? Is it because Gillette said that it's fine to be gay? Is it because Gillette has like a gay owner or something? Like a gay billionaire Yas Queen owner? I don't know.
Taught me you have to take ideas from other people. Black, white, green, yellow, it really doesn't matter.
Stop saying the green yellow thing. There's no green or like when you say yellow people, that's usually just a racist dog whistle to Asians, if anything. But there's no green people, okay? Nobody does photosynthesis. Stop saying that.
Yes, this is an NFL head coach taking over for the greatest coaching legend in the history of the sport, explaining how he learned about the importance of diversity and inclusion while working in finance.
Yeah.
If you are a Patriots fan, it's hard to imagine a more discouraging thing to hear from the new head coach of your team. I mean, there are worse things,
Why?
I guess. He could have said that he learned about diversity and inclusion from, watching Dylan Mulvaney TikToks.
Or he could have said that he watches Matt Walsh.
They could have actually hired Dylan Mulvaney to coach the team. That would be worst of all. We're not quite there yet. We'll be there in a few years. So
Gotta bring up Dylan Mulvaney every time. Dude, I'm convinced that he just has a thing for her, okay?
That's where we are now. But in any event, this comment about diversity and inclusion, I think, lends some context to what happened next. During the media questions, during that portion of the event, when they took questions.
You don't remember the Gillette commercial? It's been a couple years, but Gillette did a mildly trans-positive commercial a few years ago, and Gamergate types lost their shit. No, I don't remember that. I wasn't really a big part of Gamergate, I don't think. It might ring a bell if I saw it, but I'll take your word for it.
And the owner of the team, Robert Kraft, were asked, of course, about the significance of Mayo being a black head coach. And Robert Kraft gave...
Okay, I need to point out the irony of a black man whose name is Mayo. I'm sorry. It's just fun. It's ironic, okay, right? It's just ironic. That's all. It's funny.
Basically a good answer. He said that he hired the best man for the job, and that man just so happened to be black. He said that Mayo's color is not relevant to him. Like, he wasn't looking to hire a black man. He was just looking to hire the best guy, and this is the best guy. In his opinion, happens to be black. It doesn't matter. So that's the right answer. Like, that's the correct answer. That's a good answer.
Okay.
I don't know if it's true. I don't know if that's actually accurate.
I know that you think that he's not like a good okay, so here's the problem. Every time the conservatives tried to say that like, oh, that person was just hired because they're black, they base that off of nothing. It's baseless, okay? White people make mistakes in these same fields all the time and then some. They make probably worse mistakes, if I had to guess, because there's more white people typically in those fields that they like to point at, right? So by sheer coincidence, white people have probably made more mistakes and worse mistakes than black people have. And every time that there's a minority hire or like a woman, sometimes, especially if you're talking about like sports and football and shit, every time there's a diversity hire, they're like, oh, they only hired that person because they're black. And then they have to look for things specifically to support that narrative. It can't just be like, oh, they look at all the evidence, right? And they say, yes, according to all of this evidence, black coaches are actually worse at doing their jobs than white coaches. They lose more games. They do this. They do like they never actually look at this on a factual basis. And if any of that were true, it would be worth looking at. I think that'd be worth looking at and scrutinizing and saying, okay, why is this? Now, I wouldn't attribute it to something like inherent racist things like, oh, they're just genetically predisposed to be worse than white people in every way. But I would say, yeah, let's look at that and explore why that is, right? But that's simply not happening. And they have no evidence to show that it is, except for like a mistake here and there by like a pilot or a football coach or whatever else, a CEO making a bad investment, like here and there. When that happens all the time with people of all races, it's so disingenuous and gross. The Supreme Court judge is a good microcosm to demonstrate that. Oh, you mean Clarence Thomas? What do you mean? That they never like pointed that guy and say, well, he was a diversity hire? I mean, who was he put in by? I don't even know. Like, he must have been put in by Lincoln or something. Isn't he like ancient? I don't know.
I'm not sure if they hired the best man for the job or if they were looking to make a diversity
The recent
hire.
black lady?
We do know the
gotcha.
NFL does a whole hell of a lot to incentivize/force teams to at least consider quote unquote minority.
Well, okay, wait. Trump did put her in, right? Like she's hold on. No, Trump put in Nikki Haley. Who is this again? Sotomayor? No, Sotomayor is this one. Sorry, I'm being racist again. The new one is Jackson. Oh, so Biden put her in, right? I can't believe I'm asking this. Did Biden put in, Trump did Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch? See, I can't believe I didn't know that. Let's just go back to this.
Candidates, and I have to say quote unquote minority candidates, because again, in the context of the NFL,
see, this is the problem. I don't follow electoral politics like I was saying in the last segments, and that's a problem. Like, I need to know this shit.
men are not the minority. So those are not minority candidates by any stretch of the imagination in the NFL. But anyway.
Right, so like, what is she doing? Okay, so back to that point, though. What is Jackson doing that they don't like? You know what I mean? Like, they never say, I don't know.
That's the answer that he gave. And we have no reason to believe that it's not true. But Gerard Mayo himself.
Okay, but that's ascribing guilt. He's guilty before proven innocent is what you're saying. You're like, well, we have no reason to believe that he was a diversity hire, but we also don't have any reason to believe that he wasn't. So who's to say, really? And it's like, you're not even giving the guy a chance, man. Jesus.
Had a different take. In fact.
And now that Mayo has said, he said the magic words, right? Or the curse words, I should say. I learned a lot about diversity and inclusion in my time wherever it was. So now they're going to be looking for every single mistake. They're going to be scrutinizing every single mistake that he makes up until the day that he retires and saying that he was a diversity hire.
In his answer, he kind of rebuked indirectly the owner who was sitting right next to him. And he said this.
Okay.
I do see color because I believe if you don't see color, you can't see racism.
True.
And whatever happens, black, white, disabled person. I've always, even someone with disabilities, I always, for the most part, people are like, when they're young, they kind of make the spot hot. Younger people know what that means. But what I would say is, no, I want you to be able to go up to those people and really understand those people. So it goes back to whatever
those
it is,
people,
black, white, yellow,
that's a dog.
It really doesn't matter, but it does matter so we can try to fix a problem that we all know we have.
Okay, now, as I said, that clip went viral and lots of people.
What was wrong with what was wrong with what he said?
Those people. So it goes back to whatever it is, black, white, yellow, it really doesn't matter, but it does matter so we can try to fix a problem.
Yeah, no, he could have been a little bit more eloquent, I guess. But what he's saying is, so on one level, it doesn't matter. In a vacuum, it doesn't matter what color you are. You have just as much opportunity and potential as everyone else in a vacuum, right? Doesn't matter what your skin color is. But in terms of our current state of the world, it does matter. It very much matters because if you don't see color, you can't recognize the oppression that black people, white people, people of color have been through. But in a vacuum, we all have the same opportunity. But as a result of historical happenings, some people don't, okay? Specifically people of color. And so that we have to recognize that and make amends, We have to do things the other direction than we did before. That's my point.
Okay, now, as I said, that clip went viral and lots of people did not like Mayo's statement that he does see color. Like, that's the thing people are kind of focusing in on, is that he said that he does see color. But that's not the problem here, okay? That is not the issue with what he said. Of course he sees color. We all do. Like, we all notice the races of the people that we are interacting with. Saying that you don't see color it's nonsensical. It's like saying you don't see height. Well, I don't see height. I don't even notice it.
I
Like,
agree
of course
so
you notice
far.
it. If somebody's short, you notice it. If somebody's tall, you notice it. Of course you do. In fact, every time you look at someone, you notice these facts about them. There's nothing wrong with that.
I get it. We all see color.
We don't have to pretend and should not pretend that we don't notice other people's races. It's completely silly. So that part is fine. The rest is the problem. Because first, the reason why he says he sees color is I
thought it was good.
Well, if the reason had been, well, I do see color because I have eyes, and it's a fact about someone that I can see, and so I do see color. If he had said that, then that would be fine. But instead, he says that he sees color.
Instead, he's actually tackling the root of the problem when people say, I don't see color. He's addressing that side of the argument. So now I'm mad because he's discrediting people who say that because it's a bullshit statement to say.
So that he can stop racism. Well,
Yeah.
it's 2024, and a lot of us are trying to
It's a little bit simplified, but sure.
get our finances in order. There's some great news for homeowners.
So wait, he said that he's upset because he said that he wants to stop racism. He legitimately just said that.
So this guy is, according to him, constantly on the lookout for racism. Even though as a black NFL player turned coach who is 37 years old and has been a star athlete all his life, he is unlikely to have ever encountered very much racism. Okay. And in fact,
I don't know about that. There's racism at every level. I don't think that he would have encountered like the amount of racism that somebody like, you know, living in the ghetto in Chicago would have encountered, I guess, right? Like, I don't know, like inner city, whatever you want to call it. You know, there are areas and things that in career paths where people experience it a lot more. I agree with that part, but he still experienced it, I'm sure.
it's like almost all but guaranteed that I have encountered more racism
What?
than he has.
How could you possibly say that? What are you talking about? How does that make any sense? Let's let him explain.
In fact, that's like
Go on.
definite.
Is it definite? Is it?
And in the context of
What racism
being
have you
an NFL
encountered?
player, like as an NFL player,
Oh, we're just gonna leave that hanging. Cool. Okay. Yeah. No. Just I'm gonna take your word for it, buddy. Exactly. Sure. Yeah. Sure.
and now coach, you're not encountering any racism at all, ever. Like he's just
That's just not true, man. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna go out here on a limb for football coaches. I'm sure they are very well off. But just being well off or rich or whatever doesn't mean you don't encounter racism. Oprah Winfrey, a person that I'm not very fond of, by the way. I don't like her. But she experiences racism probably on a daily basis just from her like email inbox alone. Like, how many people do you think have told Oprah to kill herself because she's black? You know what I mean? Like, black and famous and popular. You know, like let's be real here. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you don't experience racism. Again, I don't give a shit. I don't give as much of a shit about Oprah Winfrey and the tribulations that she's experienced as a result of being a strong, independent black business owner, whatever. That's not my point. My point is being black in America comes with racist consequences, regardless of your socioeconomic circumstances. It's just a fact.
it just doesn't exist there. Yet he's constantly on the lookout for it, he says. And
And he's literally, that's funny because he literally is currently encountering racism. Good point, Theodore.
what it means to value diversity and inclusion, after all. I mean, that's what it means. He said he values diversity and inclusion, and now he's explaining what that means. And this is what they taught him in finance. Instead of teaching him, finance.
Part of finance is diversity and inclusion. That is a part of like any field that you go into, because in finance, you have to deal with people. And anytime you have to deal with people, you have to deal with a diversity, you might say, of people, right? A diverse population. There's a lot of different people with a lot of diverse traits. It's going to be a part of any career field, any.
Also, just the idea that there's anything significant at all
learn that
about
shit in
hiring a black
kindergarten.
coach is, of course, absurd. Again, 70% of the NFL is black or more. There are many black coaches. There are plenty of black head coaches in the history of the league and today. Now, there are fewer black head coaches by proportion, which who cares?
By the way, he wasn't even speaking like, when did he ever even say that he personally encountered racism? Is that a thing that he said? I forget.
I do see color because I believe if you don't see color, you can't see racism. And whatever happens, black, white, disabled person, I've always, even someone with disabilities, I mean, this sounds like a very white liberal thing, right? Like, this doesn't strike me as a black person who's like virtue signaling about how they're black and they've gone through all these struggles. Like, he's not doing that. But Matt Walsh is acting like he is. I forget where we were.
Instead of teaching him, finance.
Here we go. That's fine.
Also, just the idea that there's anything significant at all about hiring a black coach is, of course, absurd. Again, 70% of the NFL is black.
I don't think anybody was making reference to the fact that he's black. I think they're now being racist against him because he happens to be black, but nothing that he said referenced his own blackness. It's just diversity and inclusion stuff. It's like some corporate bullshit, sure, but it's not wrong,
Or more. There are many
just
black
liberal
coaches.
pandering.
There are plenty of black head coaches in the history of the league and today.
At worst,
now, there
I
are
should
fewer
say.
black head coaches by proportion, which, who cares? Just like there's fewer white people by proportion in pretty much every other position in the NFL or on the sidelines. But how do you end up?
Yeah, I wonder why that is. It's almost as though, if we're going by Matt Walsh's logic, white people are just physically inferior, which is something that many fascists believe, by the way. They do believe that, like, black people are physically superior to white people. And that's why they have, like, in their minds, I should say, like bigger dicks and whatever. And they're the basketball players and they're the football players. When in reality, those are typically the avenues. And it's that exact brand of racism for why we have that unequal divide in the first place. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. It just so happens that we, pay athletes well now and treat them well now because they had very good union efforts, okay? Otherwise, we'd still pay them dog shit. We'd still treat them like dog shit, that didn't happen magically. Black people being more prevalent in pro sports is a direct result of systemic racism.
With more white head coaches than black? Well, it's because a black person who is involved at football and interested in football at that level is just more likely to get into the business as a player.
Yeah, why is that?
And like going back,
why? Let's explore that.
Going back through childhood. If you have a black child who's very interested in football, it's the proportions tell us it's more likely that they're going to get involved as a player. Whereas,
so let's break that down. Let's figure out why. Like if you want more like white player representation in football, then like let's talk about why that is the case in the first place. It's not just like by magic. What he's implying is that black people have like a natural proclivity for athletics. This is the same bullshit. Nobody ever complains about there being so many black people in the NFL. Nobody complains about that. And to the extent that they do, they only, like my dad's complained about like dreadlocks coming out of football helmets and shit, which is super racist. But like he's complained about that. But beyond that, I barely hear conservatives bitching and moaning about how many black people there are in the NFL or the NBA because they think that's their place. They think they belong there. So they never bitch about it, right? Like it's just racism.
with if you have a white kid, now there are plenty of white kids that play football, but
poor people who have little hope for a higher education see sports as a way out of poverty. My fiance currently teaches a large population of black children. And when she asks them what they want to do when they get older, guess what they say? You got the YouTuber here, the Fortniter there, but most of them say, I'm going to be some form of athlete. I'm going to be a pro basketball player, a pro football player, or this or that. Usually those are the two. And it's simply not in the cards for most of these kids, even though there's a higher percentage of kids who are black and who will go on to become those types of people. That is only a consequence of the fact that that's the only avenue that they see as possible. Like they don't see themselves being scientists. They don't see themselves being doctors because it's been reinforced into them by both their immediate surroundings and by broader society that it's simply not in the cards for them. That's a white thing to do, leave the smart jobs to the white people, and so it's sad. It's really sad because most of those kids who are vying for athletic positions are simply not going to get them. They're just not there. There's not enough.
Go up and up and up. It becomes a less and less white sport, shall we say. And so for white people, if they want to remain involved in the sport at that level, they're more likely to do it on the sidelines. Like that's the way it works out.
Interesting. Oh, that's just how it is, right? We just accept that as our reality. No need to dig into the broader consequences and how that came about as and what that means as a society. No. Forget all that. That's all liberal woke bullshit. No. This is just the way that it is. This is the way that it is. Okay, just accept it.
And both groups are making millions of dollars. Both are doing fine, whether they're players or coaches. So we don't have to worry about either one of them. And there's no racism involved here. But the greater issue, I think, is just the idea that we need this guy to pontificate about racial issues in the first place. I mean, listen to what he said. Listen to what he actually said. So I took the liberty of transcribing it.
Transcribing it.
And here's what he actually said.
Wait. What he actually... Okay. I mean, what he actually said is what he actually said, but sure.
Quote, whatever happens, black, white, disabled person, I've always, even somebody with disabilities, I always, for the most part, people are like,
Okay, he is reading.
you know,
Okay.
when you're young, they kind of make the spot hot. Younger people know what that means. But what I would say is like, no, I want you to be able to go up to these people and really understand these people. So it goes back to whatever it is, black, white, yellow, it really doesn't matter, but it does matter. So we can.
It was just like super surface level corporate speak. There was nothing infuriating about it. The entire purpose of speech like that is to not be inflammatory. He said nothing in the most eloquent way possible. Like, there's nothing here. It's not worth dissecting. It's not that deep.
We can try to fix the problem that we all know we have. Now, I'm not trying to be funny here. I have no idea what any of that means. Okay, there's not one coherent thought in that whole jumble. It's just babbling nonsense.
I sort of agree with him on that. Like, I sort of agree that that was just corporate nonsense. So why are we so upset? Why are we so mad at him? Like, if he didn't say anything, then why are you so upset?
Doesn't mean anything. We understand the basic gist that he's trying to articulate some anti-racism thing because he starts off by saying, I do see color, we got to spot racism. Like that part. And so that we can guess that the rest of it is trying to elaborate on that point. But it doesn't actually make any sense.
He's a little confused, but he got the spirit.
You know, if I were to read you that transcript and without any context, you would honestly, again, not trying to be funny, you would honestly assume that I'm reading a transcript from somebody who was having a stroke. Or you would think it was a Joe Biden speech.
No, it's just some dude who was like, dude, was he a football player? Like, was he an actual football player? What's his name? Drafted by the Patriots. So he is a former player. This man has so many concussions that I'm surprised he can even string together a full sentence. Like, if we're using Occam's razor, that's more likely the reason why he can't really piece all this together.
Which is basically the same thing. Now, here's the point. I don't blame Gerard Mayo for that. He's a football coach. He was a player before that. And for all I know, he'll be a great football coach. Again, I'm skeptical of hiring somebody with such little experience to replace especially the most legendary NFL coach of all time. But he could end up being, plenty of coaches that have been hired at that age and end up being great coaches. So it could be a great coach.
You don't see it happening because of the shit that he said about diversity and inclusion, which has nothing to do with his actual ability as a football coach. Again, if you want my opinion, I just think that his strategizing is going to be shot by the fact that he was a football player himself and his brain don't work so good no more. You know, like, I probably have sustained a couple of concussions as well that went undiagnosed just from my high school career. Imagine being a NFL player where they're all 2 times the size, 2 times the speed, and the game is just way faster paced and the impact is way harder on you. And people die much younger when they're football players because of all of that. They get Alzheimer's at the age of like 40 and shit. So like, that would be my first go-to. It wouldn't be like this diversity inclusion bullshit, which would be why. Like, it doesn't indicate his coaching abilities.
He knows plenty about football. He knows a lot more than I do about it. But he's not a social commentator. Okay, he's not a philosopher. That's what we don't need. Any time you got any of these people in sports, like with very rare exception, most of the time you got these people in sports, they're asked some question at a press conference. Tell us about the significance of the racial this and that. What they have to say is, if you can even understand what they're trying to say, it's like the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Because this is not what these people, this is not their job, right? And this is not, they live their lives obsessed with football. This is all they think about is football, which makes a lot of sense if you're in the football business. But we don't need these guys to give us sermons. And in fact, it would just be better if they didn't. It really would be.
Well, all he's saying is you can't have opinions. Like, even if you can't express them very well, like, people still have a right to give their opinion. Like, I don't know. A lot of this just seemed to be stemmed from the fact that he doesn't understand the racial dynamics of sports and the fact that he's just blatantly racist. So there's that. I don't think this would have made news if the guy hadn't been black. Like, I don't know. It's just racism. That's all it is. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.